Alrighty, everybody. Welcome to another episode of GameCorp. This is the one and only. Once again, my name is Matt Hedrick, and here with me at an ever so late hour is Mr. Chad Porto. How are you, sir?
Well, it's only a relative late because I've only been up for 4 hours.
Yeah, you and I are on two totally different clocks, man.
I was like, yeah, I'm totally gonna get some sleep this morning. I'm like, all right, if I go to bed at 6, I can get up at noon and adjust my sleep schedule accordingly. But then it started to snow overnight, and then it started to rain, and I'm like, I know we're gonna get another dose of whatever, and if I don't clear these fucking
Mm,
driveways, which is one of my fucking 27 jobs I do, I know
mm,
when I finally get around to doing it tomorrow, there's the chance that it's going to be super fucking icy. So I was like, all right, I'll just go out there and do it. So that took 2.5 hours because of just the sludge and the dreck. It wasn't so much that the snow was heavy. It was,
mm,
how to clear snow. You aim the spout at the direction you want to push the snow. So like you want to push it towards
mm.
one side. So the problem was, as
Right.
I was kicking up the snow, it was coming down in a more liquefied clump. So as it was sprinkling
Mm.
the other snow, it was solidifying it. I'm like, oh, good. So it became
Wonderful, right?
right. So instead of it just being an easy, thing to do, it became much more tumultuous. And the one driveway I have to do isn't long; it's wide, which makes it even more difficult. Because
Oh,
if
man.
it's just long, you spread it out more. But if it's wide, you're just piling it up more. So that took like 3 hours to do. Then I had to clean the house, and then I had to do work and get paid. And I'll tell you what, ever since I started writing for this Cleveland sports website, Factory of
Mm.
Sadness, which is the most accurate name for a sports website for Cleveland, I'm making some bank. I could take a
It's a good thing,
vacation.
man.
I could take a vacation with the money I'm making from that site alone, or buy a
There you
Wii.
go.
Not a Wii. Well, I could buy a Wii if I wanted. I could buy a Switch like right now. I could take that. Well, not right now. I have to wait till next month. But I could take that money and go buy a Switch. You'd be like, boom, done, money.
Like, you could buy a Wii, but what the fuck would you do with it now?
Just throw it at you. Hey man, I bought a Wii. Why? Clonk.
Well, the Wii remotes could qualify as an actual weapon. You could just throw them at me.
Well, the Wii would qualify as an actual weapon. I could just throw the damn machine at you. So I'm probably gonna save that money and build it up. I think the Switch purchase will come in a few months. That way I
Okay,
can put some money in the bank. But I could see myself owning a Switch by April. Woot woot.
that's cool. You think you want to get the one with the longer battery life, maybe,
I don't
or just
know.
like the standard one?
I think it's gonna come down to price
Mm,
because honestly, I'm fine with because I don't really go anywhere that I would need to bring it. You know what I mean? Like if I just take it downstairs for an hour and play it while I'm watching TV or whatever, like that'd be fine. What I'm really kind of in need of, if I do buy a Switch, is getting the handheld kind of controller thing where you can slip the Joy Cons into the controller and make it like an actual controller instead of just two random ass Joy Cons. Because I
are
don't,
you talking about the grip?
yeah, that thing. Because I don't like the idea
It
of
comes
just,
with it.
oh, it does.
Yeah, it comes with the system.
Okay, because that's the only thing I really need. Because I don't like the idea of having
Mm.
two independent things. Like it makes my brain feel weird. It's like, where's the center? It's disconcerting.
Yeah, yeah, it's strange. It's a that was a nice addition idea for them to do that. That would actually give you a little like way to make it a controller yourself. That way you don't have to go out and buy a separate one. You
Mm-hmm.
got options at least.
I think I'm gonna
So
end up buying Luigi's Mansion first, though. I think.
not a bad purchase.
Well, I like the spooky ooky, but I don't like it being super spooky
Mm.
ooky ooky, which is why like I haven't bought Resident Evil 2 yet because I'm also like a giant baby.
Well, most of the like, or at least the earlier Resident Evil ones, like what of them, except for I think two actually, well, two and three, like because four was on Wii. Some of the recent ones have been on Switch actually. Like I think 5 and 6 are on Switch actually.
I can play 6. Well, I can play most of 6.
And I think that Origins, I think the Origins one's on there too with Zero and the remake of the first one. I think those are both on there too. So
The remake of 1,
if you wanted to,
the remake of 2,
mm,
and this upcoming one of remake of 3 scared the shit out of me so goddamn much. I am such a man, baby.
no shit.
And it's not even like, it's not even like the zombies get me. It's that
Hmm.
thunderous dread of not being able to see, and the anticipation, especially in the sequel, the RE2, of the goddamn Mr. X. Because when I played that game originally, I only played Chris's, Leon's. That's right, Leon's. So I didn't ever have to face Mr. X because he was only ever in Claire's. So this time around, I'm playing the demo, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, motherfucker. And then it was made worse by those motherfuckers that did the mod of it, and they made it Thomas the Tank Engine. Because you just see the
Oh,
helicopter,
that's even more terrifying.
and the helicopter gets thrown aside into the police department, and you just see Thomas the Tank Engine. And then the da 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 starts playing, and you're just like, oh, great, googly boogly, and it's horrifying. And now I have to deal with the fucking stars. Oh God, no! I have to watch Resident Evil's second movie just to make sure I don't get scared of Nemesis, because that movie will make everything involving Resident Evil not scary. So not scary.
You're talking about the live action ones, right?
Yes,
Is that what you're talking about?
yes, the sequel to Resident Evil, Resident Evil Apocalypse Now, Death Stranding, Resident Evil Death Stranding. It was basically just RE3. It's set in Raccoon City. Nemesis was chasing you. You met Carlos Oliveira and Claire Redfield and Jill Valentine. No, Claire didn't come until later. You met Jill Valentine. So, it was basically the third game in the second film, and it was terrible. And then Nemesis decides
They were all terrible, man.
Yeah.
Except for the first one.
I was just about to say, the first one's actually really good. The problem with the first one is that it doesn't follow the established mythos, so a lot of fans are like, ugh. But it was it captured the essence of the first Resident Evil pretty well.
Yeah, one of the very few genuine like video game movies at least to a degree in terms of tone, at least.
The only thing I didn't like about that is they try to do the Crouching Tiger themes. Because every movie after Crouching Tiger had to have some kind of big moment, and when what was her name?
Oh, the
Alice.
Yeah.
My name is Alice. When Alice did the random ass jumping off the wall to do a spinning kick into the dog's face, I'm like, that's so fucking dumb. That's the big dumb. Why?
That was when all those movies after The Matrix came out had to have a fucking slow-mo scene, right?
Yeah. Crouching Tiger and
fucking one of them.
Crouching Tiger and Matrix fucking ruined the action genre because everyone had to be the next whatever, and I'm like, that's fucking dumb. It's like now how everyone's trying to be the next John Wick. No, just be different. I think if I don't know who's making it. If it's not Guy Pearce. Is it Guy Pearce? Is that the dude who did Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels? Guy Pearce.
That you would know that, not me.
Well, there's a movie called The Gentleman coming out, and it stars
Okay.
Charlie Hunnam and a bunch of people. I have a feeling that's going to be a really good film. If it's not, I've just seen a trailer. I don't know. But that's the kind of movie that could be the new trendsetter for Hollywood, the smart action mafioso movie. If it becomes a hit, expect more movies like that, just like John Wick and fucking Crouching Tiger and fucking Matrix and all that nonsense. So, let's talk Metal Storm. This is Matt's selection because he wants to pay homage to our favorite video game YouTuber, Pat. Nope, that's not right. Is that right?
Wrong.
Derek.
Nope. Derek.
Derek of Stop Skeletons from Fighting. I just call him Stop Skeletons from Fighting. SSFF. If he doesn't want to be known as SSFF, then he should just change his name legally to Stop Skeletons. First name Stop Skeletons, last name From Fighting.
Knowing him, if you pitched him an idea, he probably would at least consider it.
Hi, I'm Derek from fighting. From fighting. Is that Norwegian?
You know he would do it in some dorky way too. You know it just is in his own endearing way. You know.
He would print out a picture of his face, write up on a piece of construction paper, write real human ID, stop skeleton from fighting, sex, video games, date of birth, 1990. No, he'd do like the release date of like Metal Storm,
Of course he would.
blood type, electric.
Oh Jesus.
Location,
I like that
Kanto
one. Blood
region.
type electric.
Kanto region
That's good.
is where he was born. That's what he would do. So let's talk Metal Storm.
This was his actual first review he did, is the Happy Video Game Nerd thing, I believe.
Now, how much of his old stuff have you actually watched?
I watched this one. I watched Journey to Silius, Splatterhouse, like the 361, the Gargoyles Quest games. So I watched quite a few of them.
I think I've watched all of them because there's not, he has X amount of videos, but most of them have been last 3 or 4 years. Because I think he was only doing them maybe once a month back then, if that. Because he wasn't doing it full time yet.
No, you could tell from the spaced out schedule. You could definitely tell.
Yeah. Metal Storm. Okay, I was finishing editing the scores page, so we can just do that. So, this is a very unique game. You can jump around, you can attach yourself to the ceiling, you can shoot multiple directions. That's always a cool thing. I think the one thing that most games at this point in the NES, because you could tell I don't want to say the graphical processing power, but you could tell that people were understanding better how to get the most out of the graphics on the machine. I think that's pretty obvious.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Especially here.
Well, the one thing that I think hinders this game is the overabundance on splash colors. This desire to have so many unique colors, I think it takes away from the design of the main character, especially. I think maybe, what is that, like an orangish red, orangish brown, reddish brown?
Yeah, because I believe it or not, that color in there is only for the American version too.
Well, it doesn't really work, in my opinion. I can't really tell what I'm looking at. It kind of looks like Samus with wings. And if that's what they're going for, then all right. But having no real clear idea of what the actual suit looks like, I don't know if that's a good representation. I think that does hinder it. The styling, though,
You feel like these just kind of don't offset each other real well, though? You don't feel like that works?
I feel like whenever you do anything, and this isn't a shot at this game or any game, whenever you do anything where details are so minimal and the only thing really highlighting them are black lines, you want to go as far from black as possible. And I think brighter colors, maybe a bluish or a light green or even a yellow, would have been a better idea to go with. But I don't know if they were thinking like, oh, if we go with blue, then we have to have darker backgrounds, and that's harder to see, over the course of a game. Like, I don't know the details that go into designing of a game, so I don't want to sit here and belittle anyone because, again, I don't know what kind of limitations or what kind of things they were worried about with making this game playable. What I do know is that just from an observation, just looking at it, it is not easy to tell what exactly I'm looking at with the main character. It just kind of looks like a red dude walking. It's not like in Mega Man where you could tell like Metal Man had a buzzsaw on his head or Mega Man looked like a giant doofus. These were all very obvious things. So I just think that they had this idea that would have worked better with a more I don't want to say high definition game, but if it was a Super Nintendo game, I think they could have gotten away with this. but I feel like because the character is so bunched up and so kind of like compressed, that the details of
Mm.
the specific character doesn't stand out a lot. I like the red alert flashing at the end of every level. The villains are
Yeah, that's
all
cool.
very unique, and they find a neat way of making them all kind of stand out, which I think is super impressive. Backgrounds are pretty basic, but I mean, that's what you expect in an NES game. So I'm not gonna hit it for that. I think they did a really good job with what they had, so I'm not gonna knock the graphics at all too hard. I just think the main character sprite being as difficult to see as it is hurts it a bit. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, because even though from everything you said, as far as like the look of it is kind of off here and there, there's a lot to this that works, and it's a big part of it for me goes with the animation and just how the game kind of flows in general. You know, that's kind of my favorite part about this is because everything's pretty like solid, fluid motion when you're playing, and I especially love I love the little like animation from when you go up to the ceiling and then back down. I just
Mm-hmm.
love how you do it. It's so cool that little
You could tell, be it intentionally or unintentionally, that this is kind of a Metroid clone. Maybe clone's a bad choice of words, but metallic superhero fighting aliens that does a gimmick. For Metroid, it was doing the little ball. For
mm,
Metal Storm, it's being able to jump up and down on different surfaces because of like gravity and shit. So I'm not that surprised that the aesthetic is what it is. And I'm actually very grateful about that because I think one of the things that the NES doesn't really offer is a lot of good, unique, diverse games. And having great sci fi games on the NES, I think would have made its historical significance, not historical significance, but playability significance or replayability significance a lot higher. I think Metal Storm, in that regard, is very well done.
yeah, and the especially like when you were talking about too the boss designs themselves, I was particularly impressed with, especially how they're laid out, and like we'll get to gameplay later, but how they set you up for them and the different ways that the levels are actually designed for how you're supposed to play them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they don't just make it some simple straight fight. There's something you have to do. There's some way it's designed that you have to mess with. You know, and I appreciate that. At least it changes it up all the time, and I love the how that is presented to the player, and I think it's great.
The th-
So for my score, it's oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no. Go on. Do your score.
Yeah, so, me score is a solid 4 easily, no question.
The third boss fight, I think, is what it was, which was just on screen, where it was like that floating thing that was coming out at you, and there was lines coming from vertically and horizontally, and you had to move around the screen in a square, hitting all four of the vectors. That
Mm,
was cool as hell because it a lot of times when games introduce gimmicks, be it
mhm,
what have you, they don't always put them in there for you to have to use them. And I think that's kind of one of the things
right.
that this game did differently was it made you use
Mm.
the anti gravity feature or whatever the fuck they called it. Especially in that boss fight, like you had to go to all four different points in that room, both on the ground and on the ceiling, in order to survive the oncoming laser beams. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It's a this is a rarity, isn't it, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like a game actually giving you the gimmick and saying you got to use this all the time, and you don't have a way out of this. You can't just platform your way out, like because you will eventually hit a wall. And I mean, in this case, it's literal.
Yeah.
You know,
So
so I definitely appreciate that with a game like this. I think it's great.
for sound, I think it's good. I'm not gonna sit here and say that any of the songs are gonna be stuck in my head for the foreseeable future. So I don't know if it's great, but I also don't know
Mm,
if I want to hit it too hard because it does set its tone and it does do its good job. But even though I try to give the NES pass, I really don't like this system. Like even as a
mhm.
youngster, I thought the NES was pretty bland. And that was before I ever played a Super Nintendo. I think part of the problem was, Sega came out with the Genesis in what, 89?
Yeah, the Genesis was 89. Yeah.
my first memories of playing video games were on a Sega. So whenever I played a
Yeah,
Nintendo, I was always like, this is some bullshit. I'm 5.
yeah,
It's
because
some
that
bullshit.
system was already what 5 years in, like 5 or so years into its life by the
Hmm.
time you were starting to play the game, the Genesis. So
Right.
yeah,
So like 89, yeah, give or take. So for me, I've never been a big fan of the NES. Maybe I would have had a different mindset if I was a bit older and there was a time when only the Nintendo existed. Maybe, that's certainly possible. But for me, everything the Nintendo does or I should say everything the Nintendo NES don't, the Nintendo don't. Uh, for me, it's always kind of like I've heard better on consoles released within the same time span. So like I don't ever want to slam it too hard, but I also have to admit that there are times when, I think the sound quality is just too bad not to ignore. But I'll give this a 3, just to be fair. I don't think it's bad. I
so it's
just
at least passable then.
yeah, especially for a Nintendo game. For me, I think a remastered game or a complete redo, like remaking this game for a modern console, would make my choice of scores for the sound a little bit different, I think.
That'd be awesome to see an indie developer pick this up and do a remaster. I would love to see that.
Who did the original? Do you know?
Well, I know that I know the only thing I know is it's published by IREM. That's all I know. As far as the developer goes, I don't.
What about you?
So for sound, I don't know. I found some parts of it, the themes. I feel like it does again set the tone and everything really well. But it's tough to sit here and think of anything memorable, like some track that gets stuck in my head. Nothing's really sticking out, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will say this too: when you get the game over screen, that music is depressing as fuck. Maybe you didn't get as much as I did, but that shit, like, you're like, come on, really? I have to feel this bad about playing it? Jesus.
Well, I'm sure that
But
theme's burnt into your mind with how many times you heard it.
yeah, at least a good 50 from what I can remember counting, at
Jesus,
least.
you're terrible.
Yeah, yeah. I was struggling, man. We'll get to that in a minute, but I was struggling. But as far as music goes, it's average. It's nothing bad. It's not bad. It's a 3.
For gameplay, I'm gonna, you know, sway all build up and just say I thought the gameplay for this is fantastic. Um, the one thing that it does have is a bit of a lag. It did try to have too much going out at once. I don't necessarily see that as a problem though. I see that more as ambitious. They taxed the system as far as they could tax it. So all that being said, I thought that the gameplay was, especially for such a bullshit simple console. Yeah, really don't like the
Mm.
NES. The gameplay is vastly unique and it's super intuitive and wholly unique. There isn't another game besides maybe Metroid that gives you so much clear control in an action platformer like this that I can think of from the NES. Then again, most of the times I just think of the goddamn Turtles game from the NES and I just hate everything.
That game will make you hate everything, man. That game's terrible.
That game was made by people who didn't know how to make games. I'm gonna give gameplay a 5.
Gameplay of 5. Wow. Yeah.
I didn't suck at it like
Yeah.
you did.
Like, well, let's put it in perspective here. Just because I suck at something doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. Okay, so let's just be fair there. Because for what it is, this is incredible. This is a lot of fun. And after a while, once I started to get the hang of it and the flow of the gameplay, you really do get into it. There's just something about it that's just unique. Like, I've played platformers before, but having to constantly invert my gravity and having to adjust to certain ways of traversing an environment on the fly is interesting. It's fun to, like, try. It's almost like playing a puzzle game to us in a sense when you're trying to figure out how to get through a stage.
One of the cool things in a lot of the levels is you can literally go from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen by going off screen, if that makes sense. If you're at the top of the screen and you're on top of a platform, if you invert yourself instead of doing something just broken, you'll go up through the screen and come back out at the bottom. And the first time I saw that, I was like, that's actually really cool because it allows you to not be defeated by the screen. Like in Mega Man, if you
Right.
don't keep up with the screen on certain levels, you're dead. But in this game, if you don't keep up with the screen, just hit the button and you'll go to the fucking bottom. It's awesome. It's really well done. I think it's. I've never seen a game do that before at this to this degree.
It's very clever. Like it's very clever with how it does this too. Like the entire stage is a single layout, and based on where you go in the stage, nothing really changes. It's just about your approach to the stage and where you want to go and how you handle a situation. So it's never going to be different. It's you just have it's telling you that maybe your approach wasn't the right approach at the first time. Try it this way, go this way. I kept changing things up as I played. I got to be honest. There were some times where I thought I might have to flip and I didn't, and there were some times where I didn't do it and I probably should have kept doing it because it actually sometimes it can help you get through really hairy, like really tough situations because the only way you can attack certain enemies is by being in a certain spot and doing it in a certain way. And I really love games that do that because it makes me think instead of playing some mindless game. At least it's adding some challenge to the gameplay, and I appreciate that. So for gameplay on my end, man, without question, as much as I had a hard time with it, I can't fault it for what it is because what it is great. I think it's a 5.
I was going to say something. It's a long game too. Like for a Nintendo game.
Oh yeah, it's
If
mhm.
if you can just play a game and never get hit and never die, you can beat it in about an hour, give or take. But
Mm.
these games are not designed to be so easily beatable the first few times through. So this game could probably, take several weekends to beat. Thinking of the mindset of a kid who has to rent games or whatever.
Yeah, this would not be a weekend completion in that sense.
No, not even close.
No, because the my initial playthrough of the first half of it took me at least a good hour and a half. Once I started getting like the hang and the flow of things, you know what I mean? Like trying to get through some of the stuff was hard because I'm so used to playing games a certain way that when it changes it like this, it's kind of frustrating to get over that hump, you know?
It does change the. It does change what you think a game should be for a platformer, especially if you just play generic platformers. This is going to put you on your head, literally.
Mm.
And then there's like mini boss rush levels, which I thought was pretty interesting. So for fun factor, I'm going to give it a 4. It was pretty enjoyable. I like the aesthetic. I like the vibe. Also, I have a hard time, saying Derek's game isn't, his most favoriteest of Nintendo games isn't worth playing. So I can't do that to him. He doesn't know who we are and doesn't know we exist, but
He doesn't care probably.
I gotta rep the brand.
So it's a 4 on you then, huh?
Yes.
All right. I got to admit, I might go higher because I actually, as much as I was like, "Fuck, this game is so hard," I really had a blast playing this. I kept wanting to give up and get angry, but part of it was the reason why I was enjoying it. Like it was challenging me in new ways, and it was just exciting to get through over the next hurdle because I figured it out myself, and it gives you multiple ways to do that. So. Yeah, fun factor. I'm going 5, man. Solid 5.
It's good to know you're a sadist.
Hell yeah.
So
Why not?
for challenge, the challenge score always kind of needs to be redefined, just so people understand. It's not about a game being hard. It's about a game being enjoyable to beat. You know, it's about did the challenge live up to the effectiveness of the game? Is it something worth your time to play? A game like Dark Souls is going to be very controversial to a lot of people because not everyone feels that game is, you know, something that people should, you know, maybe not people, but that game, be it Dark Souls or any of those other grinder games, they don't always attract the same kind of audience. You know, those are the quote unquote hardcore, the quote unquote real gamers. And those kinds of games really do put up a hard entry point for fans to get into certain games because of the difficulty level. I don't feel like this game has that level of difficulty. It once you understand the premise and the way you need to go about playing it, it's not hard to play at all. But it is challenging, and it does make you work for every victory. So I think the challenge for this game is equal parts to the difficulty and to the reward. It does feel satisfying to win, and it does challenge you, but not in a way you feel is done specifically to make you lose, so you have to learn and play again and all that nonsense. So I'm going to give it a 5.
Yeah, as like I said, everything you just explained was the exact things I was experiencing in my challenge of it. Because we both explained before how much I suck at games, but I've never ever said that just because a game was hard for me to play, that it's not it doesn't balance its own challenge out. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely with this, without question, it's a solid 5. It does everything right. It gives you all the tools you need to finish it, and there's not much more to say really than that.
Nope. So, what's your score?
I gave it a 5.
Okay.
That's what I.
So, overall, this got pretty good scores. Let's see. 4, 3, 5, 4.5. It's a 21 out of 25. 21.5 out of 25.
Nice for an NES game. That's pretty impressive for our show.
86 fails to make the cutoff though for a legendary slot. It will not be joining.
Not by much, but enough.
Yeah, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Let's see.
You know, there's a was it because Derek got the physical version or whatever from, it was Retrobit, I think, or something. I'm actually, after playing this, highly considering getting that version. You know, just because I really enjoyed this game, and I might not spring for the big thing with like the figure or some shit. I might just get the NES cart.
Mm-hmm.
But the game was so much fun, man. I like to have it as part of my collection. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
More power to it. It's always nice to find a hidden gem. You know.
Agreed. So, as you can see, let me just move that. As you can see on the screen, hang on, adjusting. We have a kind of a top-rated section, and you know, Castlevania perfect, Symphony Night, The Last of Us perfect, Link to the Past perfect. Then we have Chrono Trigger, Mario RPG, Mega Man X, Rocket Knight, Devil May Cry 5, Donkey Kong Country, Secret of Mana, Castlevania 3, Injustice 2, Revenge, and No Mercy of the 64 variety wrestling games. Those are our all-time classics. They are rarefied air and are shown on the big screen, if you will. So, just so fans are aware of what kind of games we consider to be on that huge level. It's not
just
easy.
Just a perspective.
Yeah, not easy to get there. Not in this house.
Granted, some of these you might have not totally agree with now because some of these decisions were made earlier before our rating system was like a solid thing we had. You
No,
know,
I agree with all of them. I just don't like all of them. Like, I'll never play Donkey Kong Country again. I find that game to be so boring. But that's a game that I don't really have an issue with because I do see its merits as one of the greatest of all time, especially for the SNES. Just the graphical ability alone of that system impresses me. Because that's looking at Donkey Kong Country, that's a game you could see being on a computer from that time period.
Oh yeah.
Which I know that doesn't seem like, oh my god, but it really was, because the SNES was not a powerful machine. It was not as powerful as a home PC, and that's what made that game so impressive. So that alone, I think, is an all-time great.
Well, what was so unique about that system too is in order to work around a lot of the limitations of it, developers created certain chips within certain cartridges to kind of maximize their ideas out of the system.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Star Fox game had the FX chip. Like I said, Donkey Kong Country had more memory storage in that game itself than most other games had. It was like 32 megs, I think, or something was running off of that game alone. So there's reasons why they're like as good as they are.
Go barrel roll. All right, you ready for the useless news? It's broken. Damn it.
Technical difficulties. Please stand by. I would have like the space monkey and the helmet just like waving.
This is a space monkey scratching his head as he's like got two separate cords in his hands and they're both sparking like,
Please stand by. We'll be right back.
It's time for your useless news. With your host, Matthew Hedrick. And the dumb monkey putting two chords together that are sparking uncontrollably. Played by Chad Porto. The monkey's no longer playing with two chords. It's just the host
now. Get a surge protector next time.
And out of the front desk, Matthew Hedrick.
Thank you, Chad, for, as always, a delightful intro. My name is Matt Hedrick, and this is our...
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, I think
he tried to put the two chords together.
Did our technical person just electrocute himself?
No, our technical monkey just electrocuted himself. You racist.
Who let a monkey back there to work with our technical shit?
Same guy who thought this show was a good idea.
Fuck me. I gotta start issuing budget cuts, man. Seriously.
Speaking of which, we're gonna start with this story. It didn't make the docket apparently because you don't care, you heartless heathen. The YouTube channel that spun out of College Humor,
Okay.
Dorkly,
okay.
and all of its subsidiaries are on the verge of shutting down.
Oh, damn.
Yep. Apparently, the financier and owner of College Humor pulled out, refused to issue a new budget as the entities were losing money hand over fist. They gave 51% or majority control to a guy who's working for College Humor and Dorkly, and has said that we're going to try to do what we can, but without new money, we don't have much time left, essentially. And Dorkly just posted a video on YouTube today doing the Pokemon trainer and his Scyther, I think is what it was. And the entire universe was being destroyed. And it was not funny. It was very sad. And Dorkly has been one of the better kind of game-centric YouTube channels for some time. And to see them going this way is really sad. And a lot of it comes down to the way YouTube monetizes videos and how much You know, they how they go about doling out ad rates. Short videos on YouTube don't make money. So when
Well,
you're trying
their
to do
practices are not pretty, man.
no, so when you're trying to do 2 or 3 minute form content, you can't do it. And I don't know why they're so stringent on that because there's nothing wrong with 3 minute content, especially if it's animated content. So I don't know. I think Darkly would be really well served to do a 30-minute show a week and combine all of their videos into one show. Basically break it down like an old school like Mario show, right? Or a Nintendo show where you had like 3 different segments. Do the same thing, like Animaniacs, same idea. Hang on,
That's what I was just gonna say, like a variety show.
yeah, I'm gonna open up Dorkly real fast on YouTube. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
There you are, with the D. Gotta get him with that D. So, right here, you can see, if you're paying attention, you can see, like, the end of Dorkly, and then Pokedexes were mega literal, if they were mega literal. And you can see, like, a bunch of, like, short form videos, a minute and a half, minute 40. But then they also have longer table pop things that were never really did. Several thousand people, which we'd kill for. But when you're trying to pay for 3 or 4 different services, you got a subscription service you're trying to keep going. You need more than that. I think they know that. But instead of doing like, let's see, this week alone they posted one video last week, one video the week before, and then it looks like they booked in about 3 or 4 videos for the month prior to that. If you were to do the 2-minute videos, the 2-minute animation videos, use This Week in Nerd History, which was a series that they were doing not that long ago. I don't remember when the last video came out, but if they were having financial issues, I can understand why probably their more expensive show kind of hit the rocks. They tried a lot. Like, looking back, they did try a lot of different things, like why was King of the Hill animated? 10-minute video. So like they were trying different things. I'm gonna
So
look
this
up.
wasn't just primarily around gaming culture, then, right? This was just kind of just all pop culture type of thing.
Yeah, but it was originally it's about dork culture, I guess.
Okay. Well, I mean, from the name, hence the name.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if I can't find the channel search bar so I can search This Week in Nerd History.
Did you ever have like a? I mean, they've probably done so many videos that it might be hard to remember. But has you ever had like a favorite one that you like remember from them?
Not really. This week in today in Nerd History, that's what it is. Today in Nerd History. The last one. I fucking hate YouTube. The last one was not 1 year ago. I don't know why. Those are the first ones that pop up. God damn it.
Yeah, YouTube tends to screw up the order and like the playlist stuff for some reason.
I'm just gonna go to the playlist. Fuck it. Let's see. The last one came out in August. Yeesh.
Hmm. So must have been problems going on for a long time then.
July, yeah, they haven't done one in a while. This was arguably their more popular show, and one of the more long form based shows. July, yeah. So the last one was in August. I don't know if the hosts left, and that's why they stopped doing it because it was Tony Wilson. He was the guy who did the show. I don't know how much editing he had, but he was the host. I would revive or put some effort into putting this into a 30-minute segmented show where you'd have 2 cartoony bits, this today in nerd history, and then do like a video game review at the end. That way, it's long form content. You're still doing all the things that you're doing before, but you're now putting it into one video, hopefully getting more money back for that one video than you were for the 3 or 4 individuals you were doing. I think that's the better way to go, but I don't know what their finances look like. I don't know because they've laid off between College Humor, Dorkly, and the other 2 subsidiaries that are part of this. There's only 10 employees left after about 100 were laid off.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is not a good
Okay.
situation for Dorkly to be in, and it's rather unfortunate. They were one of the better ones, and this reminds me of what happened with Inside Gaming Daily when they kind of fell off and then was revived by Rooster Teeth as their own show. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Dorkly, but there's certainly equity in name brands, even if they do end up falling. So there might be someone out there, probably Rooster Teeth, who would be like, "Oh, we'll bring back Dorkly." I don't know, but they clearly need to make some.
That was just what I was actually going to ask you. I was just going to ask you that if there was any chance of them like reviving them too, you know.
I can't speak for that. That's just an idea I have, but
Hmm.
certainly if there's enough equity in the brand, and you can maintain and retain certain personalities, then I think it makes sense because one of the people who hosts the shows. Let me just go back to Dorkly here in a sec. He was on a TV series called Video Game High or Video Game High School,
Hmm.
something like that. He was
I've heard of that. That was on
yeah
Netflix or something, wasn't it?
yeah, and he was really funny in that show. Let's see, what did I say on that? I just saw him in some of the videos. Hang on, scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. There he is. So for the Mordor RPG and the What's the Worst D&D game, that looks like the main villain for a bulk of the seasons of Video Game High School. So if they can keep him, if they can go back and grab Tony, then I think you could have something because a lot of the equity is not just in the name brand, but it's in the talent associated with it. That's why a lot of companies fall apart, especially video game companies, is because they lose the editors and the directors and the designers that make these games so good. You can't just replace them, and that becomes the problem. You can't replace quality with quantity. So that's the issue that I think if you're going to revive the brand or buy it out, that you need to worry about is who are you getting? Because it's not just good enough to get the logo and the brand. You got to get the talent too. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to continue on. They said that there's still some more videos and they keep supporting and they'll see what happens. But it's very likely that come springtime, Dorkly's done. So
I was gonna say I thought like most other YouTube channels or something at one point they would have like started springing up for Patreon because that's I've seen a lot of other YouTube channels actually lose their partnerships with other like because I know there's something like you network with somebody else to do your YouTube videos or whatever to handle that side of it, but like YouTube isn't really your partner fully. I think I don't know exactly how it works.
no, there's a partner program that you sign up for as a channel. And as long as you meet certain qualifications, there's going to be like a basically a ethics auditor, if you will, that will review your content every so often with algorithms and such. And as long as you're making content that doesn't violate YouTube's terms and conditions, your channel will continue to be monetized. If you don't, they will review your channel to see what infractions you've incurred, and they will decide upon that moment whether or not your channel can still be monetized or not. What you're thinking of
Okay.
is some channels get into a network of sorts.
That's what I was thinking.
And what this network does is they try to cross promote various channels. And by doing so, they require X amount of revenue share from your YouTube partnerships. They're basically terrible. No one should ever get involved with them, and they're leeches for money. They will also end up putting in certain kind of contractual obligations in your deal that will make it very hard to break or get away from. Matt Pat from the Game Theorist talked about this last year at some point, I believe, with his channel and how terrible it was to deal with such a conglomerate. I forget what they were called, but they're not standard YouTube practices. They're charlatans. They're guys that will try to sell you on this idea that we can help make you more money, but in actuality, all they end up doing is leeching off of you. So
Kind of sounds like like agents in professional sports to a degree to me.
well, agents in pro sports actually serve a larger role than a lot of people seem to realize because they handle not just negotiations with teams, but with
Mm.
brands, and they chase down offers. A really good agent in pro sports is actually highly efficient, especially considering a lot of these guys in sports don't have the reading comprehension or the analytical mindset to be able to look at a contract and understand the legalese of it. So having an agent who's essentially almost a lawyer in that sense to come in, read the contract, look over the provisions, look for the loopholes, and to advise you on it is actually really useful because they are only brought in on new deals and they only take 5% usually of a deal. And their whole job is to make sure you're better off tomorrow than you were yesterday. So they're actually, while you still have to pay them, they're much better than whatever this YouTube conglomerate idea is.
So what I was even thinking wasn't even like the broad definition of that then, was it?
No, it's not even that because the whole thing with these kind of YouTube groupings is that they're built on promises, and you
Mm,
can't guarantee a promise. An agent doesn't
mm-mm.
guarantee you anything. An agent will serve in your best interest. That is their obligations and their duties. I
So
really
this is
want.
a whole other animal. I don't even know how to like.
I'm gonna look up what the name of
I'm
these things are called.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you explaining it to me, but it's just like for me, not knowing a whole lot about this, it's kind of hard to process. I'm not gonna lie.
Hang on, let me. Why don't you talk about the stroke story while I look this up?
Okay, this had to do with. Let me pull up my notes here. This was a Texas gamer who saved the life of a friend of hers in they were playing a game together in the UK. The kid's name is Aiden Jackson. He lives in Widnes. He was talking to his friend Dia Lathora when they were playing. I believe it was Battlefront, and then the conversation just all of a sudden stopped, and he started having a seizure. And of course, with Dia being worried that everything was quiet, she decided to try to find a number and call the authorities. And when police arrived, the parents were completely shocked. They didn't really know what was going on, and they were thankful that somebody was able to get to him in time, and he got care and he's fine now and everything. I thought it was a nice story to actually like in gaming for once that like you're not playing and harassing somebody online. Somebody's actually helping somebody out in a drastic situation. So that's kind of why I was into the story a little bit, because you don't get too many of these. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice. It was nice to see somebody just help somebody out for once. But yeah, it, it's one of those things too. I thought because I've seen different things like this happen before, but this is on a different level. Like I've seen stories come out where what is it? People who've been playing games for a consistent amount of time um, actually like end up getting like medical issues in that sense. This is a whole different animal. This is just somebody having it out of nowhere, two totally different things. But it's still the outcome is just like you normally just don't see that. Like with something like this, somebody would hear that in a situation, and maybe not everybody's going to have the common sense or be the nicest person to, help them out. They'll just be like, "Oh shit, something's happening. I don't know what to do. I'm out." You know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice. It was nice to see for once a turnaround for somebody doing something and forgetting about games for a second, and just helping somebody out. I feel like that was a genuine thing.
Okay, so to go back to the previous story I found it. You're referring to when you're talking about a grouping. You're referring to MCNs, multiple channel networks.
Okay.
That's the. I'm trying to clear notifications on my phone. A multi-channel network is an organization that works with video platformers to offer assistance to a channel owner in areas such as product programming, funding, cross-promotion, partner management, digital rights management, monetization, sales, and/or audience development in exchange for a percentage of the ad revenue from the channel. Benefits, access to video creation and publishing tools, marketing and promotion, that's usually the big one. Access to production and editing facilities, higher CPMs, which is, I think, commercial payments monetization is what that breaks down to. Access to traditional media projects and celebrities, cover song and background music licensees on copyright music, live events and merchandises, but there are many controversies. Machinima has been criticized for the use of perpetual contracts. Ben Vakhis, known as the YouTube community as Brain Deadly, attracted media attention in 2013 over contractual issues with Machinima. Under the terms of his contract, Machinima were permitted to place advertisements on Vakhis' video, and in return, he would receive a percentage of the profits generated. However, the contract also disclosed that it existed in perpetuity, meaning Machinima would hold the rights to any content created by Vakhis published on his partnered YouTube channel in his lifetime, a detail Vakhis failed to read. Machinima was criticized in early 2013 for high-profile YouTuber Athene for intimidating multiple partners to sign a contract that would significantly lower their CPM. Athene called it one of the worst deals on the internet and advised his subscribers not to sign with Machinima, stating that they could get a better arrangement with other networks. This isn't just with Machinima. I think that's essentially why Machinima ended up dying. Is Machinima dead? I think Machinima's dead. They're dead to me.
I haven't heard much from him in years, so it's very possible.
Machinima dead. Second Google search. Yep, Machinima Inc.
Your computer was working ahead of you on that one.
My cell phone was. Machinima Inc. was a U.S.-based multi-platform online entertainment network owned by Warner Media. The company was founded in January 2000 by Hugh Hancock and was located in L.A. It closed in 2019. Yeah, so when it comes to things like CPMs, right? Was that what they were called? MCNs.
You were talking, yeah.
When it comes to MCNs, they're not always a good thing. They do offer a lot of benefits, but most of these, if you dedicate actual 40 hours a week to making any type of content creation your job, you will either learn how to do these on your own, or you will be able to find someone who can help you for a moderate fee. MCNs are not the end-all be-all, and they often they're very predatory in the sense that they find up-and-coming talents, offer them the sun, the moon, the stars, and these kids think, oh my God, this is the greatest deal ever. And then when they start to realize how much simpler it would have been just to do all the things these people were offering to you on your own and how much cheaper it would have been, then there comes the problem. You know, a lot of people, when they have a sports agent or even like a movie agent, they don't want to deal with the fucking hassle. They don't want to deal with the 30 hours a week of negotiating a contract. That's why they hire attorneys and agents to do it for them. But this is a vastly different thing because these entities kind of give themselves this almost infallible nature. Like, come on board. We have all the resources you could ever need, but all the resources you need are a Google search away. So they're largely
kind of a go-between that aren't really necessary in a sense. Then
yes, they offer you, you know, sun and the moon and the stars. Now the only good thing about them is they do offer. Some of them do offer essentially like low interest loans. Like if you need something, they can, you know, send you the money, and instead of making you pay it back, we'll just take out X amount more over the course of your deal with them through ad rates. So there is like that alone, like the ability to fund something with a multi-channel network is like the big sell, I think. So like if you're trying to do something truly impressive, an MCN might be the way to go. but also know that you're doing it mostly for minimal money at that point and name value than anything. And if that's fine by you, then an MCN might be the way to go. But
Quite frankly, it sounds like a lot of gray areas to me, man. That's
oh
what it
yeah,
sounds like.
oh yeah. Anytime someone says I'll help you do stuff for lots of money, it's a gray area. It's always
Yeah,
a gray
it's
area.
just because there's one that I know of offhand. Actually, two I believe I know of offhand that were like multi-channel networks. That might be a thing. I think it was what Maker Studios. I think because I believe they were with Epic Rap Battles for a while before they went independent.
It's entirely possible.
And actually, I believe Cinemassacre is actually part of Screenwave Media, if I'm correct on that. I think. So these are out there in the wild. They do exist. That's how they got that's how they get their DVDs and all their shirts and other stuff done merchandise wise for the site. They don't really have a Patreon, so they're part of it too. So yeah, I don't know. I don't. That stuff sounds like I said, it's just a huge gray area. That sounds like if some one little tiny thing could go wrong, the whole thing could just fall apart. You
Yeah,
know?
essentially.
So,
So you sent me a story about Modern Warfare's Australian DLC proceeds to be donated for fire relief. That's pretty cool,
mhm.
but that's the entire story.
Yeah, like I said, it again. It was nice to actually see something like positive because I never get these that often. So I'm like, oh shit, something positive's happening. But
This isn't that
it's kind of a
surprising.
short-lived one.
Developer says game started selling 400% better on Steam after releasing torrent. This is entirely likely, but it's not always the way to go. When you have a game that's not very well known and
Mm,
you offer it for free, essentially, what ends up happening is the people who are willing to go to torrent sites are usually pretty big voices in certain communities. So let's say for the sake of argument, I'm a big torrenter. Well,
okay.
let's say Matt doesn't play a lot of indie games, but he likes me, and anytime I bring up a game to check out, he thinks about it. If I say I played this game, Matt sees that, hey, I played this game, it was pretty good. Matt goes, oh, okay. How much does it cost? Oh, $15. Oh, I'll buy it on Steam. And that's usually how this happens. Now, that's only with smaller developers. If you were to release God of War on a torrent for free, what would end up happening is the company who owns God of War would go out of business in a day, being facetious with the time frame, because there's no reason to pay $60 for something you can get for free.
Exactly.
Especially when it's considered a major franchise. Now, the weird thing that exists in the ecosystem of video game enterprise and capitalism is this idea that big developers don't need our money, but little developers do. When in actuality, all developers need our money. So
Oh yeah.
when you see a small developer releasing a small game for 10, $15, people go, oh, I beat the whole thing on a torrent. It's only $10. Well, I'll buy it so I can support them. And it's literally just a $10 donation at that point. And that's essentially what's happening here. I don't know the name of the game. Let me double check. Danger Gazers.
Mm.
Yeah, released on Steam earlier this year. It didn't make much of a splash. A week later, the developer Shota Bobohiz, fuck that name, uploaded a torrent of the title on
That's what
Pirate
I
Bay.
said actually.
Bobo Bobakides? Shota Bobakides? Bobaklakta.
I'm not even gonna just call. I would just call him Shada.
You're calling him Shota. Noting that there's no catch here, no Steam, only features, just the fully functional game. In return, they asked players who liked the game to consider buying it at full price. Shota told Polygon that they estimated the Gambit resulted in a 400% sales increase. You can see it in the Steam reviews for the game, where players note that it became an instant purchase the second they say that the developer released a torrent for the players who couldn't afford it. The game itself is not my cup of tea, but I'm happy to support the dev, one reviewer says. Like I said, this is that mentality. Shota told Polygon that they're empathetic to players who, for whatever reason, can't afford to buy a game. I grew up pretty much in a situation where piracy was the only solution and the only way to obtain newly released software, Shota said. There are many individuals in such positions that can't afford to buy, but eager to support in other ways. But if word of mouth, sharing around social media, or even a simple fan email sending their positive feedback and appreciations, they know the game developed in a solo venture over the last 4 years. It's harder than ever to get players to know about smaller titles, which is part of the reason why Shota took this time-tested route. Every little helps. In addition to claiming a 400% sales increase compared to the release data, Shota says that the Danger Gauge is now also on double the number of wish lists than it was before, and it didn't stop there. Some individuals went out of their way to donate more than twice as much than the game, which cost $9.99. And I received countless emails from all those people who showed their support. I'm thankful that my message was clear and thankful for the support. So this is not going to be a way to make money over the course of a career. Like you can't rely on this alone. So
No.
these stories, while interesting, they're not the truth of a situation. They're moments in time fragmented by a unique series of events colliding onto one another. A franchise
I
like
think
Modern
above all of
Warfare
them,
wouldn't be able to do this.
I think one of the things that kind of like stirs back up in my head though is that there's this lack of like a lot of demos nowadays to try out any games.
Mm-hmm.
So there's these incentives being thrown out in order to get you to be enticed by something, because not everybody's going to want to drop the money just to see if a game is good or not, and word of mouth doesn't always matter in the grand scheme of things because all of our opinions are different. So having that playable version in front of you, kind of wish it was done through legal channels, but if it's put in this
Well,
manner, then it doesn't matter, you know?
it is within legal channels because they're the developers. They're the one who released the game for free. It's not like it
Right.
was
Yeah,
released.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand what you mean. The thing that I think is interesting, demos I'm predicting are going to be making a comeback in 2020. Partly because when you look at the success of Resident Evil 2, one of the things that I think people need to understand is having a demo for a remake of RE2 did not help that game.
No.
It did not need it. What the demo did do, however, was help that game faster. That game was always going to make 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, however many millions of sales.
Name
But
alone, dude.
to do it as fast as it did was spurred on by the demo. And the reasoning that I've always kind of surmised that they did it was they drastically changed the entire game. It was less of a reboot or less of a high definition remastering as it was a completely new game. The story elements changed. The locations of characters and key items changed. Like the way you played the game changed. So to release the demo was Capcom's way of saying, hey, you have 30 minutes or whatever it was, 60 minutes to play this game. Get as far as you can. And then maybe buy it. Get used to the gameplay. Get used to what you can do. And we'll show you that this is still a Resident Evil game, even if it's not tank controls. And it worked. And it was one of the biggest smash hits of 2019. So you really can't argue with its effectiveness. And I think a lot of developers are going to see that as a useful tool. But like with anything, it will be very successful to have demos for 2 to 3 years. But then there's going to be such a clout of people releasing demos that demos will be lost in the ether, and certain developers won't have the same traction that they were hoping for, and will stop doing demos, and that will become the new trend, and then we'll go through this circular cycle yet again, because everything is circular and everything ebbs and flows.
Yeah, because that kind of reminded me of the time when on the 360 with the Xbox Live Arcade, when that was still a big thing. Almost every game had a trial version of it that I can remember offhand, and I have a feeling like that was where that kind of trend kind of hit its peak, because there were so many of those, and like you said, just after time they just become irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I think it's going to come back though. It's definitely a practice that if it's not overly in just bogged down by so many other options, it's definitely going to be something that can't work. So as long as you get in on the downswing as it starts to tick back up, you're going to be fine. Like it will be an effective, useful tool for some time until the market dictates otherwise. So you have the PlayStation Store. No, the PlayStation will not attend E3.
Yeah, again,
Whatever. Fuck you, E3.
just it's because the only reason I even bring it up again is because this is a year where I mean they're going to do their own thing anyway, but this is a year where there's some people are having this argument about with the new system coming out that this needed to be the platform where they showcase it, and I don't personally agree with that. I'm quite personally done with the event myself. As soon as Nintendo started doing the direct approach, like just doing those videos instead, I was more down for that because it was a straight to the point presentation that just laid everything out. And I prefer that in terms of the big budget. We have to have this big flashy show and all this other bullshit presentation. Like, just give me the facts, man, and let's move the fuck on.
Well, this is kind of like the idea of what we were just talking about with the multi-channel networks, the MCNs. E3 is not a video game company. It's not owned, licensed, leased, or financed by Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, Sega, whoever. They open themselves up. They put the money down on advertising, on press, on the event, on all the functionality of the features, and invited companies to come there. And when the companies saw how much press was invited and was coming, they're like, this is too big not to go to because we don't have anyone covering our events. But as everything changes, E3 no longer became a necessity. I mean,
Right.
people started to see it as what it was, which was a way for another company to kind of leech on to bigger companies and make money off them. So the inaugural one was 1995. So this will be the 25th anniversary of it. Nintendo can easily have 10 million eyes on a live stream like that. Sony, same thing. Xbox, their stream will probably fall apart, and you might have to buy a new Xbox to get the stream, and then you'll have to buy an upgrade to get that stream. But eventually, you'll get 36,000 people will see the Xbox stream. But essentially, video game developers now aren't even reliant on consoles anymore. So there's no reason to even go to E3 if you're a developer. So the need for E3 no longer exists. It's like needing to be in a magazine, needing to get your CD heard by a record executive. Those are no longer needs. You can put your music out on social media, tag the right few people, hope to God someone retweets it, and boom, you're an overnight sensation. So E3 no longer is relevant. And that's the thing that E3 needs to realize. They need to call GameStop and just be like, hey, how about we do something radically different because we're about to die.
Yeah, the times are changing, and what you're offering in terms of what you used to do is just not what works in this day and age. It's just the way things are presented are just different now.
Mm-hmm.
So I like I said, I'm perfectly fine with it being the way it is now. I don't need these things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather even have Microsoft just say fuck it and do that too. You have some kind of state of play inside Xbox, whatever the fuck they call it. Do one of those every year and just leave E3 where it is. I mean, it's cool for a while, but honestly, it's an overwhelming fucking thing. I don't like it.
Not a state of play. If it's Xbox, it's a state of delay.
Well, based on some of the delays I showed you, man, fucking A, it's not like it's out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy VII, and Last of Us all got delayed.
No, Avengers, actually.
Avengers got delayed, sorry. Oh, no,
Yeah.
Last of Us got delayed too, didn't they? That game was supposed to be out in February. It's not going to come out in February anymore, right?
That one did, but I'm talking just like in this recent past week, just the week, yeah.
And the funny thing is, Square Enix was two of those. But here's the thing.
Yeah, who would have fucking thunk it, right?
I don't have any hope for Cyberpunk 2077. I think that game is going to be a disaster. I think that game is going to be an out and out failure, kind of like what was that, Watch Dogs, where like it's like Grand Theft Auto, but you're facing the man. So like, yeah, that game was always
Yeah, because just because you made The Witcher doesn't mean you just have some gold standard on how games are made. And even The Witcher wasn't some like the most fantastic game ever or anything. So
Bethesda will tell you all about that. Go ahead and ask them.
oh yeah.
So, I think 2077 Cyberpunk is going to be I think it's going to be I don't know if it's going to be a bad game, but I think with the hype that's surrounding it for no real reason. Like, the hype for this game was so big before they even announced Keanu Reeves was going to be a part of the game. And I saw no merit of that. So I think what's going to end up happening is this game's going to disappoint. But for the other two games, be it the Avengers game and Final Fantasy VII, while I've already made my bones about the fact that they're only releasing a fifth of the Final Fantasy VII game, you get to play through the first run of Midgar. Cool.
Goody. That's $60 well spent.
So excited. Now, if it's kind of like the Hitman franchise, how they reverted to a chapters, you buy the game, you get the chapters for free. Fair enough. I don't want to wait 2 months for the next chapter, but at least I understand it. But I better not be paying $60 for each fucking chapter. I'll tell you that much, because homie will go to Tokyo and knock on some doors and ask some questions with Mr. Knuckles and Mr. Other Knuckles.
I like how you said Hobie. That's funny.
So,
yo, bitch.
What's up, G? Mr. Knuckles wants to say hi. I'm a fan of Sonic. Bam! That's not Knuckles. No, I said Mr. Knuckles. No relation. So with the two Square Enix titles, even though as I mentioned before, with the Final Fantasy VII, I'm not happy with the general length of that game in general. I'm happy that they're willing to say, hey, we're not done. We need some more time. We don't want to give you a crappy product. And everyone's going, we'll take the extra 6 weeks instead of getting a game that disappoints us. Like, we're good. We're good, fam. It's like having a waiter come out and saying, hey, you know, your food was made, but no one knew it was ready, and it got cold. So instead of serving you cold food, you know, here's some free bread. We're gonna make your food for you, so it's fresh and ready. I don't think anyone would be that upset about that. I think maybe unless you were on a time crunch, everyone would be like, well, I appreciate you doing that for us, because it shows a commitment to the customer. And I think customers are by and large, you know, we're paying for a service, and we understand that things do go awry sometimes. As long as you're upfront with us and you're not going to be a dick about things and give us what we're asking for, I think we're willing to wait a little bit longer if it's reasonable. So, you know, I think this is a good thing. Now, if this was kicked back to next year, I think Square Enix would have been burnt to the ground.
Oh yeah, no shit. Fucking question.
We're pushing Final Fantasy VII back to 2021. First thing that pops up on Polygon, Final Fantasy VII Remake doesn't actually exist.
I would not be surprised if that became a headline one day.
Like you know that if this game keeps getting delayed, everyone's gonna be like, it doesn't exist. It's Half-Life 3. It doesn't exist.
Well, you look at the time frame of what they're asking for to get it done, and that kind of shows you that there's not really, at least to my knowledge, there can't be that much of a problem at this point. This is just kind of a little pushing stage just to fine-tune a thing or two here or there. That's all it seems like.
This isn't a rework of the engine. What I think this is they saw some of their assets and they're like, we need to do better with some of these. So they're redoing them. And I think that's all this is, which is fine. That's essentially what I think is going on with the Avengers specifically, is I think they're redoing the character models. I don't blame them for not they try to make them look so much like off-brand MCU characters, which I'm sure may have been an edict, or maybe they thought that was going to be a good thing. Like, we can't get Chris. Which one is he? Chris Pine? No, Chris
Evans.
We can't get Chris Evans on a cheap deal, so let's make Chris Evans light. What they should just do is make them look more like the comic book versions, and I think people will be all right with that.
Yeah, this is Crystal Dynamics, so it's you gotta know where they're coming from when they make stuff too, you know, because there's just a certain style they've had, especially with like the Tomb Raider games and stuff. When I saw these characters pop up, I'm like, yeah, I kind of expected them all to look like that,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. Like it was just the way it was gonna be. But I see your point. Like instead of trying to be too much of like what's in the live action stuff, why not just go away and try to maybe tailor it a little more to the comic book side of fan base. I get that.
Yeah, and not even so much the comic book side, but just do the design in a way that doesn't feel like you're trying to get the stunt doubles. You know, like do it in a way that makes it reasonable that these are who they're supposed to be, but also wholly unique to themselves. I think that's the issue. Like, there wasn't any of these issues with Spider-Man's game from 2019 with Sony, right?
Mm.
We all know that he's Peter Parker. We don't need him to look like what's his little daffy face, the little British boy, Toby McLondon,
Tom Holland.
Tom McBurger. There it is. We don't need him to look like Tom Holland. We just need him to look like Spider-Man, and they did. So I think if they follow that kind of idea, then I think they'll be fine. If the game's good, I don't think anyone's gonna be bitching about it, regardless. If the game's not great, though, it's gonna be like hilarious.
Yeah, I've been hearing weird things about this game too. Like it's supposed to be like an online multiplayer type of thing or something like that. Like I'm not sure exactly what it's supposed to be, but um, it's not like an adventure game. It's always ever changing the missions and stuff like that. I don't know what you exactly would call that.
Mm-hmm.
But the game doesn't. If I was thinking of like a cooperative, I would prefer having a cooperative Avengers game where you could just interchange as the four characters or something, and the adventure would just progress no matter who you picked in the adventure. I would have preferred that, but to each their own, I guess.
I'll see how it plays. If they're doing segmented where certain characters are only used in certain events, fine. But I think now I don't know like what kind of engine could support this kind of ideology. To have X amount of players and to be able to play the scenario vastly different each time, I think would be very cool. But I don't know like. And see, I pitched this idea before. Like, if you do games like this, I think instead of having difficulties, the characters should be the difficulty. Super easy. Hulk. You smash through everyone, you beat the game in an hour. Super fucking hard. Black Widow. She can't do as much. She's not as strong as the other characters in terms of physical strength. She's not as fast. She's not a superhuman. Or, they don't call them metas. That's a DC. She's not a mutant or a god or chemically enhanced like Captain America. She's just a person. So that's the super hard difficulty. That would be a really cool way to do a game like that. Just make the difficulty each player. And to add like little things like with Hulk, he can just like smash through a wall, smashes the main villain in fucking 20 seconds, boom. But Captain America needs to use a shield and play. But that's a very deep, very complicated engine to create, I'm sure. So I don't know if that's even feasible or if it's financially viable, but it would be interesting to see if they ever went that route.
Oh, you'd probably need more time to do it too than what the idea they have now is, I believe, also.
I'm sure. Last bit of news that I saw, Epic Game Store has announced that they are. I just love the way this is framed. Epic Game Store exclusive, making tons of money. I'm sure that's going to make so many people happy.
Especially Steam users.
Right. Listen, you don't need an account. Well, I mean, you need an account, but you don't need to have a subscription for either service. Why not have both and shut the fuck up? Could you imagine if people who watched media were the same dumbass, douchebag, idiotic, childish individuals as gamers? You have Amazon? I only watch on Netflix.
Like, who fucking cares?
Right? Like,
who cares?
Y'all the big dumb, and y'all need to go the fuck away. By the by,
I mean, while there is exclusive content, it doesn't really matter. It's just what you prefer to watch.
Well, yeah. The exclusive content is what matters. If you want to watch The Office, you're going to pick the streaming service that has The Office. But you're not going to, if you don't want to watch The Office, you're not going to hate on anyone that does want to watch The Office. So what's the big fucking deal? This is brand loyalty, and I do not get brand loyalty when a brand is not willing to work with people. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why are you being loyal to a service that literally exists to monopolize the industry? It's my same issue with why people support Amazon. Why are you supporting Amazon? They are literally trying to be the only thing you will ever use. Then they control the market, and why would you want that? Are you that stupid? You don't understand the issues of monopoly? Like, I know y'all never actually finished the goddamn game, because who the fuck has? That game is obnoxiously boring. But the whole point of that game is to control the board so that everyone else has to go broke. Play the goddamn game of Monopoly. You are literally trying to take all of the money and land from your opponents so that they go bankrupt and poor. Why would you support monopolies? I'm all for Epic Games Store because you know what? It creates a fucking competitor and it opens up room for another competitor and another competitor and another competitor. As long as it's not, what was that, fucking Google Stadia? What the fuck was that?
Oh God, that's still a thing at the moment. It's called Google Stadia.
Like, what the
It was
fuck were you thinking?
They were trying to have an idea that they just honestly they're not able to sustain it. And that's their like massive issue with it. Like a very ambitious concept, don't get me wrong, but they're making a lot of claims out of the gate and a lot of things they're just at the moment they're not able to back up, and I don't think they're going to be able to back it up for a long time.
Google has only ever done one thing right. Google. Their
Right?
social media website, their glasses, their fucking video games, it's all fucking terrible. Just stop. And even their search database is now becoming very wonkadoodle because they are obviously suppressing certain websites in favor of others, and their workplace hostilities are on the rise, and there's a culture of toxicity there surrounded under the guise of progressive ideologies, and it's just a hellhole to work at. But they let you have beanbag chairs in the break room, so they're hip.
Ooh.
I feel like Google is Dr. Evil. I'm hip. I'm cool.
Dr. Evil. Bring it back Austin Powersville as I'm loving it.
Right. So, yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't like streaming services. I don't like, online stores. So for me, I don't want to have to play my game through a service, be it Steam or Epic Games Store. So I'm a not do either. And if I can just buy the game and download it to my PC or PlayStation, that's what I'm going to do. Or if I can even buy it in physical form, that'd be even better. Because that way, I'm not as subjected to your whole system needing to be online and functional for me to be able to play the game. Because one day something's going to happen to Steam or Epic Games Store, and all of this fucking time and money put into it's going to be gone because someone put a comma in the wrong place in the code. They broke the matrix, and now everyone's fucking Steam data is lost forever.
Hey, same thing applies for those people who bought into Stadia, all like 5 of them.
Why would you
Because
buy Stadia?
they're
Just why?
because they pay you have to pay the $60 to play the game also on top of your subscription.
Yep. It's what
So,
ESPN does with the UFC. To order a UFC pay per view, Matt, it costs I think
yeah.
$65. It was it
Oh.
may cost 70 actually because they said that it was a price. Price was going up. I don't know if it was $5 or $10. I think it was $5. So it's going to be $65 for a pay per view. But in order to order the pay per view, you have to pay a $5 monthly subscription to ESPN Plus. So you're paying $70 for a UFC pay per view. Now, that $5 also allows you to see certain ESPN UFC cards that are only streamed on ESPN Plus, but you don't need to pay an extra fee for that. So it's just $5 a month. You get this ESPN card. Then you also have ESPN having shows on ESPN that you can watch just by going to your cable providers and watching that. But yeah, it's no different than gaming, and I think people are going to realize that gaming. I've said this before. Gaming is going to die. the business models that they are putting into services are going to drive a lot of people away from the platforms. They will only have X amount of fans left, and they will be catering to a specifically niche market that has a high turnover rate. It's not a sustainable model long term.
No.
So, either what's going to end up happening is video games will go back to a single payer kind of setup eventually. But first, we're going to have to get through this toxic free to play freemiums. Yep. Eras only last so long, and everything falls and rises. So, believe me, this is going to be no different. It's just getting through it to the next cycle until we can launch our own independent console that allows you to play all cartridge games. And plus, we're releasing new cartridge games specifically for that console. Matt, every game we make is going to have a small virus. So if you try to rip the information into your computer, it will infect your computer with all types of illegal pornography.
I fucking love that.
Right? Like, fuck you for trying to steal the game.
That fucking comes.
The console costs $80.
Fuck
the game
yeah,
costs
dude.
$20. Just fucking buy the goddamn game, you fucking cheap-ass motherfuckers.
Kiss my ass, you're not in the digital age anymore, bitch.
Welcome to analog, bitch.
You better blow in that cartridge, man.
You better not blow in that cartridge. You don't know where that cartridge has been. Watch yourself, motherfucker.
Dude, that whole thing was like, that's a whole myth, I believe, right? That you like people
blowing
in cartridges. Yeah, that didn't even work.
It does, but it doesn't. If you have a game that's not been used in a year or two, yeah, that will work because the dust will accumulate. The problem is it's not effective or efficient. What they suggest that you do is use condensed air. Because the problem when you blow into it is you may have, even if you're not intentionally doing it, you may have saliva that comes out when you blow. Even if it's not like you don't have to spit, like even just like you may lose some particles, and that can affect the cartridge files that are exposed, the chips that are exposed in the cartridge.
You're thinking of the contact ports, really?
Yeah, the contact ports, and it can affect the contact ports. So they recommend that if your game has collected dust and has been sitting there and is having some issues connecting, use condensed air and not blowing into it because you may accidentally project some spittle. And that is the appropriate term for spit, is spittle.
Yeah, these people we need to get back. I don't know if I so much want a full physical age again, but I do miss the time where it was just grab a game and go.
I do.
You know,
I
really miss it.
I want to go back to the full analog days because I don't need to worry about viruses. I don't need to worry about hacking. I don't need to worry about an incomplete game being released because you can't update it. So if you can't update it, you're not going to release it until it's done, at least hopefully. So I think there are a lot of advantages of doing that. Plus, I don't like having to play with other people. Like, fuck you. I want to have this experience by myself.
Do you realize if we fully went back to this, how many developers like in the current landscape would have to really restructure their way of thinking?
Yep. But do you know how much more consumer friendly it would be?
Oh, it'd be amazing. It'd be fucking fantastic.
You wouldn't be able to spend $700 on the same game over the course of a month because you're trying to buy the new skins. It would be a far more beneficial thing for the consumer. So, plus what ends up happening when you go back to an analog idea, it becomes more expensive to produce games. At least not more expensive to produce them, but you now are relying on a secondary outlet to make sure your games are produced. So not every Tom, Dick, and Jane can go out and make a game anymore, which means the market's not as overflooded. And it forces these developers to find other people to collaborate with. So instead of having, a market of 1 million new games a year, you get 180 new games a year, a much more manageable process to deal with where a lot more people will be able to make money to sustain themselves because one of the biggest issues in dealing with modern gaming is the rise and falls of studios in the span of years, not decades. I'm talking about a new publisher will open up their doors, release 1 or 2 good games, and then at the end of 5 or 6 years later, they're out of business. despite their
Happens
first game
all
or
the
two
time.
being,
Yeah.
despite their first two games being highly profitable. So having an analog kind of situation would allow that to not be an issue anymore. But I don't know if it's feasible. I don't know if it's viable, but it's certainly something I would like to try one day. And it would be great if we could partner with like Sega. Be like, hey, what if we released a new console, but it's for cartridge games only?
Oh man. So we couldn't do Dreamcast 2 then.
And no, we would call it the Dreamcast too.
Electric Boogaloo.
It's called the Dreamcast 2. It has a multi-port entry point, so if you want to play any cartridge games, it will accommodate. But we won't market it like that. We'll just say it can accommodate all cartridge games made by Sega. But we'll emphasize all. So if you want to put like Super Mario Brothers 2 in there, or 1, there's not a second to Super Mario Brothers 2. Shut up. If you want to put like Super Mario Brothers into that port, it'll work. But we won't market it. We'll just let that be a thing that people will find out on their own.
Just a little Easter egg hunt. I like it.
Right. And
Do you know there's actually like? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go on.
Go ahead.
No, go on.
No, I was gonna go off on a different tangent, so
No,
you'd
go
probably
on.
be better. Yeah. Just getting onto the physical media thing. I've been going to these other sites recently, buying certain like physical releases, trying to still support that. And one I saw was for a recent game, and it's has an actual release on the Dreamcast. I thought it was so cool.
On the Dreamcast?
It was Yeah, it was for a game called Xenocrisis. I've tried to get this reviewed a few times, but yeah, they actually this developer Bitmap Bureau made physical cartridges for the Genesis. They made a Neo Geo one just because they're insane, and then they made copies of it for the Sega Dreamcast as well. And I'm like, dude, I'm seriously considering like dropping $30 and getting a Dreamcast game again.
I mean, why not? See, if Sega was smart, they would just find a way to go in there and find a way to reconnect the Dreamcast to the internet and bring back like a Dreamcast kind of centric online community. Like, I think that would be popping, truthfully.
Do you know Dreamcast actually is capable of producing a Wi-Fi connection?
Yeah.
It's fucking insane. I can't believe that.
No, the Dreamcast can't produce a Wi-Fi connection, but they are a hard line to get to the.
Oh, the hard line to the router. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they need a hard line to the router, but yeah, Dreamcast. Well, PlayStation 2s can get on the internet too.
Yeah, that's right, because they had that same port. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dude, that generation of consoles was popping. Like that.
Oh yeah.
To me, PS2, Dreamcast, and maybe Xbox. Fuck it. And even GameCube, although GameCube wasn't internet, like that was the last truly great generation of gaming. Because it had the right amount of internet connectivity and, tangible physical copies.
Yeah, those systems were fantastic. Like Dreamcast, I don't know which out of the three, which like you might probably say the PS2 might have been the best out of those three then probably.
Not for the complete experience. Dreamcast was the best console for the complete experience because Dreamcast had a very sustainable online network that the PS2 just didn't. It wasn't as prevalent with the PS2. None of my friends were playing PlayStation 2 games online, but some of my friends were, and I say some because that's the only ones who had it, were playing Dreamcast. Like, let's say I had 20 friends that had a PlayStation 2. Of those 20 friends, maybe 2 had a Dreamcast. But of those 2, they played Dreamcast more than they played PS2. In fact, Dreamcast had better sports games, better online services, and they had a lot of unique titles strictly for the Dreamcast. Now, this next part kind of gets lost in translation because I don't know which version is true. I've heard both. Resident Evil Code Veronica, I heard, was supposed to be technically Resident Evil 3. But because Resident Evil Capcom had to deal with PlayStation to release 3 numbered titles for their service first, Resident Evil Code Veronica, instead of being Resident Evil 3, became Resident Evil Code Veronica. While Resident Evil 3 was supposed to be a spin-off title, That was not part of the numbered line. But I've also heard that it was a different situation where this was going to be an offshoot completely, where Resident Evil 3 was going to be an offshoot completely, and they made a decision because of release timing. They didn't want to release the next game on the next set of consoles. They wanted to finish up the third one on PlayStation. I don't know if that's true at all. I'll find the video actually, because I just watched it, and the only story I had ever heard was that PlayStation had a 3-number title deal for them. That's the only story I ever heard. So let me look up the other video real fast, because I was watching it last night or this morning. I don't remember which one's which anymore. It all blends together.
I think if I had to pick my favorite out of the three, it would probably have to be Dreamcast also. Like, because when you think about it, Dreamcast had a lot of it was a great place for arcade games.
Well, you're not. I didn't say it was my favorite. I said it was the best for internet and console games.
Okay, I'm sorry.
My favorite was
that. I'm sorry.
PlayStation 2, because it had all my favorite franchises. But as far as a console goes, Sega had the most, opened kind of fan base. Like they were both going to play console games on their Dreamcast, but also go online with them. That wasn't as prevalent in PlayStation culture that I saw.
Man, all three of those consoles were like real versatile consoles when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. They really were.
Like I love the GameCube, and just like how it was really one of the last Nintendos to have a lot of different features to it, like the link cables, all the other ideas. What was it? Double Dash was the one you're thinking of, that like people could literally have LAN parties with hooking up 4 GameCubes together. It was fucking nuts.
Well, you could do that with all of them, technically, I think, because I know you could do that with the Xboxes, because we did that. And I think the PlayStation had the same capabilities. I think the only thing that was limiting all those games were the viability of having the games that could do it. Because I don't think every game had that type of functionality to have like 16 people playing at once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, more so. It was more so on like something on like an. Because the only one I can remember in that generation, especially for Nintendo, that would let you go online, I believe the only one was Double Dash, to my knowledge, that would let you go that many.
I don't think GameCube had online functionality. I think the only way you could do anything with the GameCube was by having LAN parties.
Yeah, this might be what I'm thinking, yeah.
Let's see. I think I found the video.
I love the fact that you could literally fucking carry that system anywhere.
Right? Like, what a great idea.
That's fucking fantastic. Who would have fucking thought of that?
What a great idea.
Grab that bitch by the handle. Let's go. Let's go do some gaming.
They stole my idea for a girlfriend. Grab that bitch by the handle.
Is that your stipulation? I will not have a girlfriend unless she has a handle.
Right? Okay, so I think the video that says it is Resident Evil 3, 7 Things You've Forgotten About Resident Evil 3 by Outside Box.
The Resident Evil 3 remake by reminding you of 7 things you may well have forgotten about Resident Evil 3.
I'm trying to find it in the video, because I remember the scene where they said it.
Members, Valentine, who isn't a mate, why you shouldn't rely on people with the Brad is horribly murdered by.
So they're showing the cutscene from the first one where Brad leaves them all. And the funniest part of the original game is when they're all looking up in the sky like a bunch of doofuses. Oh, it's the best here. Oh, I love it. It's so corny. Matt, what have you been watching this week?
Watching wise, okay. I've only watched a couple of things this week. I finally did get the chance to watch that Green Lantern movie that I was telling you about, the First Flight. And this stuff continues to surprise me because I see that what was it, Christopher Maloney, I think is his name, right? That he is the voice of Hal Jordan in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's pretty cool. Otherwise though, the movie itself is, out of most of the ones I've seen so far, it's the most like kind of straightforward derivative movie. There's no real like development here. It's just moving from sequence to sequence in a sense. So it's all right, but it wasn't my favorite out of them. And I only watched one other movie. Like if we're talking just straight up movies, I watched one other movie this week, and that was called what was it, Jexy? Have you heard of this movie?
No.
Okay, this has to do with what's this guy's name? Adam, is it Adam Levine or something? The guy was in Workaholics.
Yeah,
I can't think of his last name.
I know who you're talking about. He was on Modern Family.
Yeah, what this movie's about is he's a guy who doesn't really have any friends. He's obsessed with his phone, and what happens is he gets a new phone or whatever, and the
Oh yeah,
AI in
okay,
is Rose.
yeah. I've heard of this movie.
It, yeah, the AI is like simply batshit insane and totally starts like fucking his life up. And I gotta be real, I liked first of all, Rose Byrne is hilarious. Like I swear to God, she makes the whole thing work for me. Like her role alone is just hilarious. But this whole movie, I love how it's short, it's simple, it's to the point, and it's funny throughout the whole thing. Like every moment feels like it should be there. You know what I mean? Nothing feels stretched out or bad. And the jokes are fucking spot on. And the message is good too, I think, that we don't always need this stuff to rely on all the time, and maybe it's better to explore other options, do other things every once in a while, and just what we have is there. It's nice, it's amazing for what it does, but go see the world a little bit. You know, that's why I thought that movie was good. But that's it as far as like watching. I mean, unless we do YouTubes, but I don't think no none of our guys have done YouTubes this past week, from my knowledge.
Not really. So here's what I found. A true sequel to RE2 is being made for the Dreamcast at the same time that a spin-off with a new protagonist was being made for PlayStation, but then Sony made a deal with Capcom for limiting exclusivity on the title Resident Evil 3. The spin-off was given the numbered title Resident Evil 3. The main protagonist was changed to Jill since Chris was already in the sequel on Dreamcast, and it was decided that Raccoon City would be destroyed in RE3. Meanwhile, the true RE2 sequel on Dreamcast was labeled as a spin-off and later given the title Code Veronica. The RE3 staff more than doubled, and as a result, much of the CV staff, which is Code Veronica, had to be outsourced. RE3 and Code Veronica originally were supposed to be released around the same time, but Code Veronica was pushed from late 99 to early 2000. They link sources. It also goes on to say, I also found this pretty interesting. Despite Resident Evil Code Veronica not being a numbered title, they still promoted it as the true sequel to RE2. It was originally intended to be this true sequel of RE2, and is still referred to as the creators as such. That's the story I always heard. Here's a different version of that. Quote, this is incorrect. There was no deal between Sony and Capcom to make a trilogy on PlayStation 1. Code Veronica was never intended to be a sequel to RE2. Let's explore and explain. About RE3 Nemesis, in 98, Capcom hosted a party at a hotel, New Otani in Tokyo, to celebrate RE2's 3 million sales. On the same event, a presentation about the future development of the Biohazard series was released, and the general manager of the development, Yoshihaki Okamoto, expressed his desire to make a Gaiden story depicting events that were not revealed in Biohazard and Biohazard 2, which are the Japanese titles for RE2 and 3, or RE2 1 and 2. Gaiden was intended to be a small indie game made in a short time span. This means that it would be made by a small team with a restricted budget, and even though the scenario written by Kawamura was new, he would be capable of handling the scenario. However, the course of the series development began to change when the teams received word about the impending transition to the new PlayStation 2. The Kamiya-directed BH3 was targeted for the PlayStation 1. Biohazard 3, by the way. That's what BH3 is. By the time the game launched, the market would have shifted towards the PS2. Furthermore, the PS2 was a powerful system, and without sufficient time for development, the Biohazard quality that was expected would not be achievable. During a certain period of time, Gaiden was also referred to some development documents as Biohazard 1.9 or Biohazard 1.9 and 2.1 due to the game events taking place before and after Biohazard 2. Forced to make a change in plans, Okamoto announced to the team that Biohazard Gaiden was going to become the last numbered release in the Biohazard series for the PlayStation 1 as a means of keeping the titles of the first 3 games on the PlayStation 1 console consistent. So Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, which was to be a small spin-off, became the third main game due to the soon arrival of the PS2. There was no deal with Sony here. Almost done. One last paragraph. Now, about Code Veronica, Capcom was working on a port to RE2 to Sega Saturn, but it was abandoned. So in January of 1998, Capcom decided to give something special for Sega fans. I was first conceived as a Dreamcast only. I think he meant it was conceived, because I don't think this human being was conceived by Dreamcast. It was first conceived as a Dreamcast only game, but it was later on ported over to the PS2 and NGC, Nintendo GameCube. But why it isn't numbered if it's a main game? Well, according to project supervisor Yoshi Akamoto, at the time only PlayStation games were numbered. There was also confirmed by Shinji Mikami, Shinji Megaman, in an interview to Electronic Gaming Magazine number 121. He also expressed in the same interview that plot-wise, Resident Evil Code Veronica is a sequel to RE2, but as I said earlier, it was never intended to be, and he links sources. So the story of it being licensed only to Sony seems to be debunked, thanks to Reddit. So, yeah, I guess the narrative has changed.
I like the fact this thing's got an interesting history from what you're describing, and it's interesting to see the idea of it possibly being either a smaller, you said like a smaller independent game, like maybe even possibly a spin-off to a full-blown sequel.
Did you ever play the original 2 and 3?
Yes, I did.
3 plays much differently than 2, and not just with the fact that you have Nemesis chasing you. They have essentially quick time events that determine the pace and how the game ends, depending on how you fight. Like whenever you fight Nemesis, it's like, do you want to fight or do you want to run away? Push him off the cliff or fight him. And each time you pick, it changes something. And depending on the number of choices you make throughout the game, if you run, if you fight sometimes, if you fight all the time, will determine the ending you get. That's vastly different than RE2 and 1. So, in that sense, it is independent of the way the games were being designed. I don't think he meant an independent studio, though. Because it's
okay. More or less independent in idea, not independent in studio. I got you.
Like how Joker's a DC movie, but it has nothing to do with any of the other DC movies.
Right. It's kind of in the pocket with its own idea. Then You're saying.
So I think that's kind of what they're going with. There's links to all these stories. ProjectUmbrella.net, articles, Biohazard, Code Veronica development history. So basically just go to Project Umbrella or Retromags.com and you can find all the information there.
It's always cool to hear about the histories of games, man, especially when it comes to stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And maybe we have to review that sometime, because I have a Dreamcast, so I could definitely find Code Veronica and play it.
I think one of the cool things about Resident Evil isn't so much its lore, but its history as a game, because RE2, vastly different originally than what it was going to be. You didn't play as Chris's sister. You played as some biker chick. The game was a bit different, and the police chief wasn't a villain. So they sat down, remade the game, and changed so much of it. Resident Evil 4 was going to be more on the supernatural side of things. You were going to fight ghosts, and they changed it. So I think one of the cool things about Resident Evil is that there's so much behind-the-scenes lore that changes how you view these games in context, and I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, because it's not something you see a lot with a lot of different series. Like most of them, at least for the most part, keep consistent tones and themes. But this one seems to like whatever. They just want to go with the flow, whatever they think is going to work, and they just put it in the game. And I think that this history is far more interesting. Maybe we should start doing reviews of like each subsequent game in the series, see what changes. Mm-hmm. Because I'm interested myself to see where it eventually leads to. Because I haven't personally played all of them. Like, I've kind of sporadically played this series, so doing a deeper dive and like covering covering them all over a period of time would be a cool thing to do, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should maybe think about that at some point. Maybe do them not even during Halloween month. You don't even really need to do that, but maybe around then, just have a month for Resident Evil or something. I don't know.
I can decree any month I want to be Spooky Ookie month.
Because Spooky Uki's awesome.
Spooky Ookie, it's the Dragon Force in the world.
Damn right.
I mean, I'd be fine with reviewing a bunch of RE games. I wouldn't. I don't want to review necessarily just all 3 of the first ones because you're basically reviewing the same game. You know?
Well, no, we would mix and match, man. Have different ideas in there. That'd make it interesting.
Well, like it would be if we did it would be the trilogy of the PlayStation games as one.
Mm-hmm.
Code Veronica 4, and then one of the newer ones. Because like that would give you a pretty big berth of uniqueness for each game.
Right.
I think that would be the way to go about it, but I don't know. I can't play the new ones.
Bothers you that much, huh?
They scare me. I gotta hide underneath blankets while playing. They scare me. I played 4,
you said
no
7
problem.
didn't really. You said 7 didn't really bother you that much, though, did it?
No, 7 was fuck that game.
I was gonna say, I never heard you being too scared of that. So,
I honestly like 6 was scarier to me than 7. Yeah, I fucking
that's messed up considering they were trying to go for the scarier tone in 7 than in 6.
Yeah. Well, 6 brought you to this underground cavern, and like it wasn't very well lit. 7 just made me feel like I was at my cousin's house, and I was like, ugh, God, I don't want to be here.
Annoyed, not scared.
More grossed because like y'all are creepy.
Yeah, that doesn't lend itself to a good horror game like too much. Like you need to be scared to a certain degree, and that's just I've seen this game before, and it doesn't look like it really pulled it off, at least in my opinion.
7 is more, ew, look how creepy we are, and I'm like, nah, dog, nah.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, that's all I got for this week.
Do you want to know the ironic thing when you were mentioning like monopolies and stuff like that earlier? That you're talking about the game of Monopoly. I actually played it too. Like just recently, played it on the Switch. So it's like you completely threw me through a loop when you brought that up.
Interesting. So you can find us on the website at realnerdcorp.com. REALNERD. Wait, let me do that again. REALNERDCORP.com. We're on twitch.tv/Comic and GameCorp, as well as on YouTube. Just Google Comic and GameCorp, and you'll find our YouTube channel. We also have a wrestling side of the branch at twitch.tv/WrestlingUnderground and youtube.com/TheWrestlingUnderground. All of these shows that we do can be found on realnerdcorp.com and by going to Podbean at realnerdcorp.podbean.com and downloading past shows. We're also available on Podbean's app, so if you want to take us to go on your mobile device, you can do so by downloading the Podbean app and searching for Real Nerd Corp on the app today. We're on Twitter at NERDCRP, on Instagram at Real Nerd Corp. Matt, your personals are MNerdCorp on Twitch and Twitter?
That is correct.
And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at ChadNerdCorp on Twitter and ChadSvedohut on Instagram, respectively. You can also find me writing all the time. Click on that shit. I feel like I forgot something.
I don't know, man. You got a whole rigmarole you go through, so if you've stumbled somewhere, I have no idea.
Rigmarole. You can go to realnerdcorp.com, REALNERDCORP.com, and find all the links there. So just do that instead. All right, Matt. Unless we got anything else you want to add, now is the time to say goodnight.
Just want to thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week.